Hey everybody, welcome to episode 5? Yeah, episode 5 of Post-Apocalypse World. This is the GM show where we kind of post-show talk about... I'm trying to make a sports metaphor in my head. This is like where when there's the game and then after the game there are people who talk about the game. Only I'm not just like the referee, I'm one of the players. Sports. I don't know, you're talking to the wrong guy. So basically what we do is every week at 11 o'clock Pacific on Thursdays, we play Apocalypse World. It's a role-playing game by Vincent Baker, and we play that on Roll20. We do it live. We do a 4-hour show every week, and then as a follow-up, the next day, what I do is I sit down and I talk about the show that we did. We go over what happened. I talk a little bit about what I was thinking and doing during the game, and then we talk about getting ready for the next session, doing prep work. And with Apocalypse World in particular, there's some tools that we use called fronts to manage that prep work. So, how NPCs are connected, what parts of the world they belong to, how they threaten the character's safety and well-being. And so what you're attending now is sort of the press conference analysis, the locker room strategy session for both the episode that happened and the episode that is to come. So one thing that I want to talk about is sort of ongoing cast changes in the game. So you'll remember from the last episode, we had Smith July non in attendance, and then again this episode he was absent. So the player, as so often happens in real life, AFK. Austin's been really busy with a big move. Huge congratulations to Austin. He's working at Giant Bomb now, which is fantastic for him. Difficult for scheduling, so it's made him unavailable to play. And rather than try to do that thing where we're canceling this week and we're gonna pick it up on a different day and come back and do all this stuff, we just wanted to continue playing the game because it's going to be a limited series anyway. And I feel like it's really important with an ongoing narrative to keep up momentum. Plus, I thought it'd be an opportunity to do some fun stuff, right? To swap him out, Smith July, swap him out for Eugene. Do some Maelstrom like weirdness, it remains to be seen whether Austin will be unbusy enough before the campaign ends. But I promise that whether he continues as Smith July or not, this is not the last you will see of Austin Walker on Roll20 Presents. Just saying. So anyway, as a GM, that's a challenge for me because, and this is a fairly typical topic. I think I talked about this a little bit in the last Post-Apocalypse World. You end up in this situation as a GM where you're like, okay, so I've got a cast of players and, we're playing, let's say, I don't know, like basic Dungeons and Dragons. So we've got 5 or 6 people and we're all playing the game and it's great and everything. And then, oh, sorry, like Ragnar the Ranger can't make it. So what are we going to do? Are we going to keep playing without Ragnar? Like, he was right in the middle of the dungeon. What do we do? And you have to deal with this kind of like double balance of, if the game you're playing requires certain number of players or certain types of characters, you have to balance that. So if you're the GM, you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, you're playing a pre-built adventure made for 4 to 10 players, and it's like, well, crap, I only have 3 players. You have to mechanically adjust for that. Thankfully, I do not have to worry about that because Apocalypse World doesn't work that way. But you also have to narratively account for it, and that's where it gets tricky. Because I tend to find that the more mechanically focused a game is, often you can balance out the mechanisms and be better off. But if you're focusing on a really narrative game, you end up in this situation where you're like, well, how did this character just disappear? Now, I'd love to claim that I did the whole memory thing specifically so we could be like, yep, okay, no problem, somebody's missing. Weird Maelstrom effects, but no, that's not what happened. I mean, okay, like, there's a little bit of that, but it wasn't intentionally the plan. So thankfully, we were able to have that focus episode to be like, yes, Smith July is there. Now Smith July is gone. You know, Shogunai, what are you going to do? But you noticed, like, I've kind of phased Eugene out because Eugene had that sort of spotlight episode, and I really didn't want to have, like, a tag-along NPC there to just kind of, like, do stuff the whole game. So, we'll see what happens. We've got a week where we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I can't really talk about the details yet because we haven't hammered it out, but I'll just say this. This Thursday is going to be a bit different than the previous weeks that we've done with Apocalypse, where we're going to do something a little different. We're also announcing our next game, but, you know, we'll see that. But one thing that I found really interesting, and I'm sure as an audience you noticed this too, you know, you take a cleric out of the D&D party and maybe the players are a little bit more afraid to die. Or you take the fighter out and, you know, it's harder to account for that lack of tanking. But what's really cool is we took out the Skinner in Apocalypse World. We took Austin's character and sort of removed him from the game. And it's really interesting watching the characters try to compensate. Like, the fact that they had that big dinner scene with Jericho, imagine how different that would have gone with Smith July at the table, right? Like, what's really interesting to me about the characters in an Apocalypse World game is that they have this niche they belong to earlier on, where, you know, as the game advances, you can take moves from another playbook, or you can move into another playbook. There's a great example of this in the new Mad Max movie, but it's not been out that long, so I won't spoil it. But you can change who you are, right? And this isn't multi-classing in the traditional sense. This is like abandoning a part of your personality. So, like, let's envision a future where Gritch kills nothing and takes over the Clarity Cult, right? That could be an opportunity for Andrew to change Gritch's character from a brainer to a Hocus, right? To evolve from, you know, Charmander to Charmeleon, right? So you can become a different kind of character. But in early game stuff with Apocalypse World, like, the gun lugger lugs guns and the driver drives and the brainer is a creepy weirdo. And it's hard. Like, you may have a decent hot stat or whatever, but that really only gives you one avenue of mechanical control, right? And you see this in all of the... I'm going to expand out sort of beyond Apocalypse World, but, you know, in the Powered by the Apocalypse engine games, of which there are many, it's a very popular tool set to build role-playing games right now. It won't be forever, but, you know, right now, the last, like, 5 years, it's been very popular. Because, you know, 5-6 years is about as long as it takes to make a role-playing game, sometimes. You know, the thing here is that if you don't have a move for it, you're at the mercy of the GM. If you're watching Sagas of the Icelanders, and I haven't been able to keep up on every episode, but if it hasn't happened yet, it's bound to. That moment where a man or woman character is trying to do the thing that the other sex has a move for. So you're a man and you're like, wait, I don't want to kill this guy or talk shit about him, and those are the only things I can do. I want to, like, have a conversation with him. So you're like, hey, Ragnar, let's have a conversation. And Ragnar's like, fuck you, and pushes you in the mud. You have no recourse as a player because your character doesn't have the move for that. In the same way that like Navarre and the other players have not had the opportunity to do much more than seduce and manipulate. And even then, it's a crapshoot, right? Like, none of them has a very high hot score. The best a lot of them are going to get is that partial success, which is still sort of at my mercy to kind of make GM moves as I like. So it's interesting watching the dynamic of play change. And I think what I'm doing with the whole kind of like Jericho wanting to raid Mercer thing, and Newton and Renfrew wanting to oust Jericho, like Jericho's kind of like fears coming true, you know, those things are my way to highlight what the characters are good at or not good at. Like, you'll watch me I do this to Navari a lot. I ask leading questions to find out things about Navari's character. You know, I'll say, how does it feel to be back among the raiders or the former raiders, like right before they're ready to go on a like attack on a raid? How does that feel? Like, do you feel the bloodlust like rising? You know, and so far Navari hasn't taken the bait, but I'm curious to see at what point that happens. You saw the same with Frankie, where I goaded John, where I was like, yeah, but John, remember Frankie's a daredevil. So Frankie, like, are you looking forward to an opportunity to just say, fuck all this talking, fuck all this weirdness, let's get on the boat and go out there and be Action Jackson for a little while, make things simple, right? Because I think that Navari and Frankie, what they really want is a simplicity of existence, right? Like, Gritch is the tinkerer. There's one in every Apocalypse World game. Gritch is the guy who wants to pick things apart and figure out how they work. And sometimes this is like a creepy person who wants to do this to other people, who wants to like learn their secrets. And sometimes this is like a savvy head who wants to like fix the world or a small part of it, right? I want to fix the generators for our hold, and then people have, you know, warmth, right? That's a goal for them. And so, you know, really, like, my job, and we talked about this in the first session of Post-Apocalypse World, my job as the GM is to be a fan of the characters. And for me, the way I often interpret that is by, like, you're not a fan of the characters by giving them everything they want. You're a fan of the characters by putting them in situations where we can learn what they want, right? Or we can learn how far they're willing to go to learn what they want. And for me, like, ideally, what I'm doing as a GM is my favorite moment is when a player looks at me after I've said something and is like, you can see the light bulb go on, and they're like, oh, maybe that's what my character wants, right? Or, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way, right? And I have the ability to do that because, in a way, and this is something I'm realizing like a lot during this game. You know, we talk about the GM PC and what a kind of like fallacy that is. You know, like I feel like everybody's had experience with this, where you're playing a role playing game, and you've got a character and your friends have characters, and the GM is like, all right, I'm the GM, but I'm also going to be playing Throndir, the Great Wizard, and he'll be accompanying you on your quest, so that every goddamn time you're in trouble, Throndir can be like, hi, fireball them, and then you're saved. Or Throndir can be like, oh, never fear, the quest lies that way. And it's this, like, often, like, bullshit way of railroading the characters, or giving the GM a really, like, obvious, frustrating way to, like, shove the narrative in a particular direction. And you know what? Apocalypse World has that to some degree in the Maelstrom. Now, the Maelstrom can't make you do anything, but it's a way to interrogate the GM about what's happening in the world, right? Like, when the players don't know what to do, or they want me to be able to barf some more Apocalyptica upon the setting, they just ask me with their characters, right? And on a 7 to 9, I just make up some shit, and it's confusing and whatever, right? So, like, you know, you open your brain to the Maelstrom and you miss, and I'm like, awesome, bad things happen to you. You tried, you shot for that, you shot for that freebie from the GM, but instead I get to weird all over you. But on a 10, it's like, okay, I'll reveal something to you from my fronts. Now, we built this into Dungeon World as a spell. There's specifically a spell in the game where you cast, it's a cleric spell, I think, where you basically ask the gods for advice, and the GM looks at their fronts and says, okay, this is what will happen next on this front, right? And I can do that. I can do that in this game. It's not codified in the same way, but I could say, like, if, for example, Navari opened her brain to the Maelstrom about Newton or Renfrew, I could say, okay, let's go look at my fear front. Let's see where Newton and Renfrew fit in, and I'll say, you see a vision of the next thing that comes along in the countdown. Now, don't worry if this is your first time viewing this, you don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Countdowns, fronts, whatever. We'll get to that. But the way that the Maelstrom works is it's an injection of pure GM information into the setting, and I think that you've seen some of that happen as the game has gone on, right? Especially with, and this is how it works, especially with Gritch, because he's a brainer, right? So, I think that's something that I've been trying to use both as a method of illustration of the sort of fictive quality of the universe, right? To be able to say, you want to know why things are weird or how they're weird, or ask me about things that your character wouldn't be able to know. Maelstrom, right? I think it's one of my favorite mechanisms in the game, and I love the idea. And we talked about this in an earlier episode. Meg Baker mentioned that the Maelstrom acts as the GM sort of eyes and ears in the world and remembers things that the players tell it or ask it. I am so thankful for how good Andrew, especially John too. Avison has a little less experience with Apocalypse World, but she's doing it too. The players are feeding me opportunities. Like this, the Minotaur is maybe like my favorite thing about the weird that I've been able to kind of latch onto, and I think that the Minotaur is going to play a bigger and bigger role. The moment we see the Minotaur in real life outside of the Maelstrom, that's going to be like a big tipping point for Gritch's character, and I'm saving it. But we'll see. If you watched yesterday's episode, well, yeah. So let's talk about updates. Let's see what we need to change about our world. As I always do, we're gonna move the weird zones around. In chat yesterday, there was a really great statement made. I think Cross Stave said it. Did I grab Jericho's Beach too? Yeah. Come on, Weird Zone. There we go. About how the weird zones, and I'm Staves. I'm stealing this from you, if that's okay. I know you're in chat right now, so if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll let you know what he says. But the thing you said about the weird zones not being wounds but scabs, I love that, and that's I wrote it down in my notes as like a thing that nothing believes. I definitely think that's a cool statement. So I'm gonna include that in his theology. It might not come up, but that's a thing he believes now. So I'm gonna move this weird zone. I'm not gonna grow it, but I want to move it here, and I'm gonna grow this one because what I want. There we go. What I want is if they go on that raid, they're going to go through a weird. I want the raid to happen, at least in part, in a weird zone. Now they can hook around and go in the like easy way, so there's only a little bit of weird, but I want them to arrive and have Mercer's Enclave kind of absorbed in strangeness. And I'm going to grow these ones a little bit. I think this was the one I could just not touch, because I think maybe I put that one on the map layer. Anyway. That one's fine. That's the static weird zone. And this one. Oh my god, look at how big that one is. Cool. Alright, shit's getting weird. Okay. Alright, so this is the world. You'll notice the scabs are growing. What's going to be really cool is when the zones start to overlap. So I'm going to just make a note for myself for when I start looking at it for next time. Mercer's Hold in the weird. And I think that this is a thing that's happened before, but I think this will be the first time they notice, because it'll be like, cool, we're in Jericho's, wait a second, what the hell is going on? Because things are changing. But I mean, it's been 6 weeks almost, and no one had noticed this hold getting closer and closer to getting absorbed. So the wounds in the world are scabbing over, and that eventually the whole area is just going to be like one weird zone. And then once that happens, who knows what the hell is going to be going on? So cool. All right, we didn't really add anything to the map. They just went from Westridge to Jericho's. I added a map for Jericho's Hold for the beach. Nice, just simple map. Nothing important about it. Usually we use these maps to dictate like where stuff is. I'm actually going to make a couple of quick notes on here because we did add some other stuff. Can't remember which font I like, but let's start here. Okay, so we got Sunshine's Place. Put it inside. We have the warehouse. So it's a little like dock house and warehouse. I'm gonna put a big green X where the boat is, or I'll put it in the Vixen so we know where she is at. Okay, Vixen's parked here. Okay, and then this is the hold itself. Now it's a 3-story building, so I don't want to start like labeling everything, but if I wanted to, if it mattered, we would have another map specifically for the hold. And maybe I'll look up like I'm gonna make a note, I'll look up like an office map for the startup turned hard hold. Okay, so here's just my little map of the hold. Not really anything complex. These are just some burned down or like flattened condos. There's some gun emplacements along the front. It's a like heavily defended hold, and they don't have any, as we know that we know of, any like enemy neighbors. Well, they don't know about them. There's definitely the clave dwellers nearby, but yeah, they're not a clear and present danger just yet. And then as far as maps go, I think the only other map, and the most significant of them in my mind, is the relationship map. Oh my god, look at how fucking complicated it's getting. Look at that. Just take a minute and just let your eyes unfocus. It's pretty impressive. Like, how many NPCs do we have now? We've got, I don't know, this is like a quarter of all the people that exist, I think, in the world, or maybe more, right? So we added in a bunch of people connected to Jericho. Look, Jericho's a well-connected dude. We've got Third and Iona, who are siblings. If you want to know, okay, so people are noticing that there's like nothing, twice, Third. I will probably add like a 1 and a 5 name in there somewhere. I like, if you watch me roleplay, you know that I like that kind of stuff. I like name sets. But the reason why Iona and Third are called that is they're both like coastal properties in Vancouver. So because I'm using this map of sunken Vancouver as my actual map of the game, I thought it'd be fun. I have a list of like Vancouver specific names. So this is this is a thing. I named them Iona and Third because those are beaches or waterfront properties. So meanwhile, on the relationship map, I've added Iona and Third, who are siblings, maybe. They might be cousins. We don't really know. They both work for Jericho. They're dock workers. We added Burke, who's the fleet boss. He works for Jericho. He's the guy that keeps the boats all like working and ready to do battle. We added Newton and Renfrew, who are the conspirators in the mutiny against Jericho. Bum bum bum. And then we have Biz, aka Bismol, aka Nervous Guts, who is a barber because he's a doctor who operates out of a former beauty salon, and he's friends, awkward question mark, with Gritch. We don't really know. They're kind of buds. Biz is like literally straight up the most friendly we've ever seen anyone with Gritch. Yeah, I need to make a change to this, evidently, because Jericho does not work for Third. But yeah, so this is just an ongoing map that I've been adding stuff to as we go, right? Like I added Brentwood and Tyne and a bunch of other stuff. So we added that in. I added in some more characters attached to nothing. I changed Twice. Remember, Twice was up here working for Mercer before, which is not true anymore. Twice is now a martyr that's being protected by nothing, the prophet of forgetting. We've got Spoiler, who's one of his disciples, and Forrest, who's also a disciple. And guaranteed Spoiler is named after what you think that she is. Like she read somewhere, or someone read somewhere about not being told about spoilers or something, and someone thought that was a good name. I had Maelstrom Eugene as a crew member, but removed and changed him to former crew, which means I actually have to change works for, because it doesn't work for Frankie anymore. And we added in Sunshine. Now, I put Sunshine over here because I think that of all of Jericho's people, she's a little bit on the outside. She's the least violent member of Jericho's crew. Like, she knows how to shoot a gun, and she's tough, but she's not... I don't know, maybe this is something that was in my head, and I don't know if it came across on screen, but I want to set Sunshine a bit aside. So, it's a thing. So nothing kind of came into the fore. You'll also notice that I added... okay, so this is a thing. It's fully formed in my head. It's a spoiler. There was some very limited, warnings about it in the game. It's also kind of gross. Nothing is Tao's dad. Which I guess I should have drawn a line. He's also Mercer's dad. Which makes what Gritch knows about Tao from the brain scan, like how Tao got sick, also really kind of not good. So, yep. Also, nothing is the only person in the setting who remembers everything that happens. So, nothing knows that he's Tao's father. He knows he's Mercer's father. But at the same time, he wants Jericho to kill Mercer and destroy the Enclave. So... everything's all fucked up. So yeah, cool. That's a thing. So we added that. I put him in here as being connected. Another family connection, and this is something I'm starting to do, where I have an NPC, and I want to connect them to another NPC. And so what I do is, instead of being okay, they know each other or whatever, we're making people family, because now I'm able to tie Jericho to Tao through a few steps, or Jericho to Monk, or Jericho to... because Sunshine is related to Hugo, and Hugo is connected to a bunch of other people. So what I'll probably start doing is, because I think that these people, they interact, right? You're going to see more of that. Spoiler is probably related to, or friends with, or whatever, somebody from Mercer's Hold, or from whatever, used to be part of the Clave, or I'm going to start tying these characters together in a way that they haven't been tied together before. I'm going to keep adding characters as we need to, but I don't anticipate filling a ton more of the space with new holds. I would see maybe 1 or 2, depending how long the game goes, maybe 3, but really not a lot. There's going to be new locations in the map, but not a ton of additional communities, because we expressly talked about how we only want the Apocalypse to have a cast of 100 at most, and we won't see all of those, right? We've got the Fishers. We'll add a bunch of Fishers to this. They're going to be related or married or brothers or sisters or whatever to other people. But what's interesting to me, and this is a purely mechanical thing, is that in a world where there's not that many people. Let me pull up Apocalypse World here for a second. Let me get my copy of AW open here, because I wanna read you something. I want to talk about gangs. Let's talk about gangs for a second. So in Apocalypse World, you can have or be a part of or come up against a gang. And a gang is just a group of violent people capable of doing things to people in a violent way. So they're what you would expect. They're like a chopper gang or whatever. So let me describe. This is the Chopper's gang. If someone takes the Chopper playbook, this is what the gang describes. So by default, your gang consists of about 15 violent bastards with scavenged and makeshift weapons and armor and no fucking discipline at all. 2 harm, small gang, savage, 1 armor. Then you choose 2. Your gang consists of 30 or so people. It's medium. It's well armed, well armored, well disciplined, nomadic, self-sufficient, blah 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 blah. So, in a world where there's maybe 100 people, the idea of getting, I don't know, 30, 50 people together and armed, it's not going to happen, right? So mechanically, let's review. Navarre fights as a small gang. Navarre is equivalent to 15 people in combat. So there's almost no chance in the whole world that Navarre will ever fight a gang bigger than herself. That's a big deal, right? So when you think about, like, why does everyone want Navarre so bad? Why is Navarre such a big deal, right? She's just got a grenade launcher. She's just tough. Aside from the fact that she's a PC, she is as she's like having like a fucking MiG jet or a like VTOL fighter. Like, she's a big fucking deal in terms of combat technology. She can win wars single-handedly in this world. So she's a big deal, right? So that explains a lot. And what I like is that, yeah, she could one at a time go from hold to hold and probably have at least a 50-50 chance of killing everyone in the hold. She's incredibly dangerous. So this is the thing. No one will ever try necessarily to confront her in single combat. But Navarre should be on the lookout for being manipulated, being poisoned to death, being taken out that way. She's like Superman, right? Like, no one's going to be able to just like blow her up directly. So people are going to start looking for her kryptonite if they realize she's in the way. She's not a sniper rifle. She's an explosion. So that was a revelation that I had about Navarre between last session and this session. Very, very, very strange stuff. And I quite like it. I think it's very cool. So let's do what we usually do around this time, and let's take the last bit to update our fronts. So I'm gonna go through them backwards this time. Let's start with hunger. So hunger has a particular, I'm going to just copy something from another front so I have something that's the right size. Hunger has something that I want to add, because we didn't see it necessarily, but it's happening. So where's the Fisher clans? So the Fisher clans, you don't know this yet because you didn't see it. The whale meat thing was an important kind of hint. It's the very first hint. This was my something bad is on the horizon. So the Fisher clans and Jericho have, like, they're feuding. So the Fisher clans have stopped sending food to Jericho. I don't know why yet, but I know what's going to happen. So the Fisher clans have cut Jericho off. Let me zoom in for you so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm updating a countdown clock. So right now the Fisher clans represent a threat to the players because they're making Jericho get desperate, right? But instead, you can't attack the Fishers. You just can't. It's just not done. But you can attack somebody else who has food. So that's why Jericho wants to go after Mercer. an unrelated, like, to why nothing is encouraging it now, but Jericho's getting desperate. So Jericho attacks a hold. I've chosen Mercer, and then let's see. The Fishers call a clan. What's it called? Like a conclave, a clan meeting, I guess. And then we'll see what they decide. So what I'm saying here is that the Fishers so far have been kind of neutral. They just trade with everybody, but they have a massive amount of power. So what I think might happen is the Fisher clans have cut Jericho off, right? Jericho is going to attack Mercer for food. The Fishers are going to be like, whoa, like, this is some bad shit. They're going to have to call a clan meeting. And at any point, the PCs are going to be able to get involved. Like, I see them visiting the Fishers at some point during this countdown. But eventually, the Fishers will decide what to do about their control. So they might say, like, fuck it, we're taking an aggressive stance. We're going to make a deal with the Raiders. So we're going to be like, fine, Raiders, we're going to provide you food. You're going to roll in here, and you're going to clear out all these assholes who don't do what we want. So this is a countdown that could affect the game very closely. In that, you know, when Frankie says like, "Oh, we haven't eaten in a while. Let's go and fuel up." Because did you notice that was like a given, that she was like, "Well, we'll just go get food and fuel and supplies, whatever. We'll barter for it." But once the Fishers close ranks, and they're like, "Cool, well, who still has food to trade? Where's all the food?" And the Fishers are just floating around in bountiful water, being like, "Haha, it's all ours." So I'm going to connect this front to bountiful water. And I'm going to add in, the beginning of this is, so the Fishers begin actively defending it. I think that they do right now a little bit, but they don't, like, have patrols. They don't have anyone to help them. They're non-violent for the most part. And then now then they officially claim it. They're like, nope, this is our territory, and they start fighting back. And then I think, actually, this is going to come after. It'll either be the Raiders or it'll be Jericho, depending on how the Conclave goes. I'm going to call it that. How the Conclave goes, they're going to make a deal with someone who can protect the water, and it'll be theirs to control, right? But remember, this isn't about the Fishers. This is about the bountiful water enticing and betraying them. So what we're going to do here is that at midnight, no more fish. So just when, at the very end, when we get there, the bountiful waters are going to dry up. So this is a thing that could happen, and then no one has food. Then what the fuck do we do? Cool. All right. So let's ask some questions. So we've got some basic stuff about the Fishers. All that's still true. We know what Jericho's relationship to the Fishers is, but why, or what did Jericho do? How about who will the Fishers use to defend bountiful water? Why are the Fishers the only ones? Or what's like, why are the Fishers the only ones that do this? Why doesn't everybody just go to bountiful water and fish for themselves? How does that happen? What's that about? So, and then this is the big one. What do we do? What happens when the food supply runs dry? I can guarantee that this is one of these things that the players are not thinking about, which is what makes it one of my favorite fronts, because it's just slowly disintegrating out from under them. This is the status quo they've come to rely on, and the main rule of Apocalypse World is there is no status quo. Shit changes. So this is one that they're gonna. I feel like they're gonna be like, well, what? Why is there no food? What happened? And then there's gonna be all that chaos too. So, yeah, and this is how. I mean, I think nothing might have originally been a fissure, right? But we'll see. Yeah, the status is definitely not quo. So what we do have, though, is this has already happened. So let's just mark it off. Boop. Now, it's between 12 and 3 here. We're coming up on the 3 to 6 slot. This could still not happen, right? We could still stop Jericho from attacking the hold, right? Mercer's hold. In which case, I have to come back and change this. These clocks don't have to be preset. Right? And we don't know when this stuff starts or like why. So I can come in and I can trigger these basically whenever I need to. So let's see what else we got. So that was hunger. Let's say hello to decay. This one is very close to being. I want to use the. Oops. This one's very close to being advanced. So this is nothing in the cult. Infiltrated Mercer's enclave. Yep, didn't go so good. Worship has multiplied, so there's worshippers in more places than they were in before. If they get their hands on someone with Tao's disease, that'll be the next check, which means it's right before things start to disintegrate, right? Till things get really bad. And remember, their goal is to victimize and incorporate, and ultimately force everyone to forget everything. Now, I don't know how these people necessarily interact with the Maelstrom yet. It seems like the way that it's developing, the Maelstrom is trying to piece together an alternate version of reality, right? That, like, you've seen it manipulating people. It somehow gets its hands on the dead and replaces them. The Maelstrom is trying to fix the world. You know, we know that now, but we don't know how or why. I also really, 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 really want, and it doesn't matter how much I want it, it's totally not up to me. I'm going to zoom in a little more so you can read it. I really want to see this happen to Frankie. I want Frankie to do the thing and drink the salt water and forget. I want her to barf up the memories of killing Tao and feed them to nothing. If you didn't watch yesterday's episode, that might have been my favorite scene. That bit with Gritch being like, "Hey, what's happening in the situation here with your brain?" And what? Oh God, with the barfing and the salt water and twice. I need to add, actually, while we're here, I need to add some cast members. So we're gonna put in the Disciples, Spoiler and Forest. We're going to put in the Martyr twice. Where did he go? Come here twice. Oh, yeah, I gotcha. Cool. Okay. I mean, like, I have some ideas of what the Maelstrom might be, right? Like, I've seen games in which the Maelstrom is a storm of souls, right? I've seen the Maelstrom as psychically empowered artificial intelligence living on a satellite orbiting the Earth, broadcasting thoughts into people's brains. I've seen the Maelstrom as hell, right? As like an afterlife force. I have an idea about what the Maelstrom in this game is, but I'm not ready to voice that idea yet. Not in-game, at least. Should I tell you what it is? Do you want to know what I think the Maelstrom is? Should I? I don't know. Yeah, maybe I should. I mean, that's what this show is for, right? So my thought is that the Maelstrom is, and this is a big spoiler because I've been thinking about it since the first episode. I think that the Maelstrom might be an alien force, dimensional or literal, like from another planet, an extant force, an external force that is trying to colonize the Earth or terraform the Earth in a way that allows whatever their entity, their species or whatever, to colonize it, to start it. So I think that the Minotaur is the architect of this new world that the Maelstrom is trying to build. That it's like killing humans by way of like turning them against each other and fucking with the ecosphere and like flooding the world and taking away everyone's memories and like trying to rebuild the world in such a way that they can colonize it. And I don't like, these aliens aren't like, you know, UFOs that are going to land on the planet, but they're assimilating the Earth in a sense that they're trying. I think of them as like philosophical entities rather than like aliens, but like the whole thing about people dying and getting rebuilt, like in my mind, like Gritch is dead. Gritch died, and now Andrew is playing a thing that thinks that it's Gritch. And I think that nothing knows this, and that the Clarity Cult is trying to forget the fake reality that this invasion force is foisting on people. So that's my thought on the matter. So, I mean, so these weird zones are places where this Maelstrom force, the aliens, the Minotaur, whatever, is trying to rebuild the world, right? Trying to be like, yep, we're fixing this, under construction, fuck off. And if you go in there, you get reconstructed, right? Twice. Not twice anymore. Twice is a broken alien replicant. Gritch is Maelstrom Gritch, right? Like, if you die, especially if you die in a weird zone, then the Maelstrom just rebuilds you or puts you together in another way. So that's, I mean, I'm not 100% sold on that, and it's cool because in this game, all I have to do is set up the situation to like slowly imply details about these things. And so I think that that's what this is about. I think that's what the Forgetting Sickness is. The Forgetting Sickness is replacement. It's people being saturated. There's this whole thing, and it's not literal in the sense that like Gritch's body is just Gritch. It's a repaired, better, fixed version of Gritch, but also, you know, it's not Gritch. But like remember this. My thoughts on this campaign are, it's a metaphor. It's a question about what does it mean truly to be. I mean, look, right here, and this came from the last episode, what does it mean to live or die in a world where memory is unreliable? What does it mean to be alive or to be dead when all that matters about you as a person is, do people remember you, and how do they remember you, and what the fuck happens if the thing that remembers you is an alien entity trying to rebuild your world? So, Tao's disease is an inoculation against the Forgetting Sickness. Or maybe it's a test for detecting Cylons. Like, there's a lot of stuff there, and I'm really curious about how that helps us understand the remembering and forgetting of the world. You know, again, like, this game is hands down the most, like, philosophically involved campaign. I'm just making a quick note here so I don't forget something. Okay, cool. I'm gonna get to this on another front. So this campaign, because Apocalypse World allows us to do these things, makes it such that these games can be really philosophical, but still just be like a post-apocalypse world game, like just about driving around, blowing stuff up, and like that's happening on one level, trying to survive. But ultimately, what does it mean to survive if you're nothing more than this confused set of memories, right? So let's look at this. We've answered some of these. So How does the general forgetting sickness interact with Tao's disease? Right? How does Tao's disease protect you from the sickness? Because it does. We know that. What's going to happen when Nothing learns Tao is dead? Well, we found out. Nothing lost his shit. So, what will Nothing do now that he knows Tao is dead? Is he going to forgive Frankie? Is he going to use it to manipulate Frankie, right? Is he going to be like, you killed my daughter. You owe me. Or is he going to be like, it's fine. Just forget. Forget. Pour the disease into your mouth. And, like, forget about that. In a way, like, I see Nothing as this kind of existential threat, but not in the same sense that the Maelstrom is. Like, we have the Maelstrom on one end, this alien force, and we have this the Nothing on the other side. And Nothing wants everyone to forget. And he's trying to make everyone forget what the sickness that selectively makes you forget things is, because maybe he wants to blank slate everybody so they can all see the reality of these things. Right? Maybe he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. But they're at diametrically opposed positions against each other. But I don't think Nothing knows why he fights the Maelstrom. Right? So, yep. Heavy stuff. How is Nothing a threat to the Clave? We don't know that yet. The Clave is trying to be remembered, so that there's a thing there. Nothing and Metropolis know each other. What does Nothing want? And I think we've answered this. Right? So, there's a sentence you don't often see in anywhere ever. Nothing wants to stop the Minotaur's architecture. Without context, what the hell am I talking about? So how is he going to do that, right? So that's a thing. And I think that we have some room here to sort of play around with this. Now I want to add Tao. I want to add Tao to this front because I think that she belongs here as well as the other one. Well, Tao is in the other front, but this is Tao's body. Because it's an incubator, it still has the disease that can fight the forgetting sickness. It has the inoculation. Yeah, and maybe the Clave is working for the Maelstrom and doesn't know it, right? They're our God. What was the name of that? What was the name of that guy? He was like the Prime Minister of Norway during World War II. It's like a word. His name is like a word that means like betrayer of your people. Well, whatever. I'll look it up later. He's that guy. Cool. Okay. So that's decay. Let's look at fear. So I want to change this because Quisling. Thank you. His name is Quisling. I want to change this. Oh my God, I have Tao's disease. I'm gonna be protected. Okay. So let's change Mercer around a little bit. Excuse me. So Mercer, I think we're gonna change this to Mercer's hold because the first thing that happened in this new front is Mercer dies. So Mercer's dead. Mercer died of her wounds. I've made that decision now. She is a corpse. So we need a new type for her front. Mercer's hold is going to be, it's a hold without a leader now. So let's see here. Where's my front types? Dear Vincent, it would be super nice if your game had hyperlinks in the PDF. Yeah, right, Mercer's dead. Or is she? No, she's dead. She might be replaced later by a Maelstrom Minotaur clone, but who knows? Okay, let me find my fronts here. Sorry, I'm distracted. I'm thinking about minotaurs. If there's an effect, if I have to make a custom move for like the first time you see the minotaur, it's totally going to be called, the custom move is going to be called Minotaur Shock, which is a thing. Look it up. It's a very weird, very, very weird treatment. So I'm going to make Mercer's Hold into brutes now because they're leaderless. And they are let's see, they're going to be Sybarites. And their impulse is to consume someone's resources. So all that's left is a bunch of desperate people eating up the last of their food supply with no leader. So let's advance this a little more. So Weird Zone absorbs the hold. Outside force comes in to the Weird Zone, to Mercer's Hold, and after that, if basically if the PCs don't prevent Jericho's forces from attacking, yeah, also Minotaur Shock is a band. They're a great band. If the PCs don't stop the attack on Mercer's Hold, Jericho's people will take something back from the hold with them that's going to consume their resources, and it's going to make the famine and stuff much worse. So Mercer's Hold is now a rotting. It's like a rotting cornucopia of like poisoned food sitting out on the table. It's a trap. So. Yeah, dangerous shit right there. So Tau's disease, we still have this. We see how it's saturating the population. This is good. We know about this and how it works. Now, there's always a bad side to these fronts, right? Because they're threats. They're threats. They're threats to the population. So getting Tau's disease isn't good necessarily, but we have answered some stakes questions, so we know some things that we can update. So is Tau actually dead? Maybe. Will the Maelstrom revive Tau? Revive's not a good word. Copy Tau. Is Mercer alive? No, Mercer died. Oh my god, okay, so I changed my mind. So she's dead. Mercer's dead. They're not without a leader, they're without a human leader. So, Mercer died. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit so you can see this. Mercer died and was replaced by a Maelstrom entity, by a Mercer copy, right? Maelstrom Mercer. So let's add her up here. Maelstrom Mercer. Okay. So the Maelstrom copied Mercer, but does anybody know that Mercer isn't Mercer anymore? What will Mercer do when she finds out Frankie killed her sister? That's fine. We know the answer to this. Who will take over Mercer's Hold when she dies? She will. We know where Twice is. That's fine. Can the disease be cured? Yes, Tau's disease. How? We still don't know nothing's connection to the disease necessarily, but I think it's biological. I think the fact that they're father and daughter, that's real. I think that's what made it happen. God, that's so fucked up for nothing. Like, the only way you can save humanity, you insane prophet, is to have sex with your daughter. but she won't remember. She won't remember. She doesn't even know that you're her father. Like, holy fuck. The whole concept in this universe of like, consent and like, accountability is, like, just fucking out the window. People can get away with pretty much anything that they want. Except nothing. Nothing remembers. And nothing remembers what happens to him, and nothing remembers what he does to people. So he's burdened with this stuff. So, yeah, heavy. So, what's special about Nothing's family? Right? Does anyone other than Gritch have the disease? Yes, Nothing does. Does Mercer have the disease? Which is to say, I mean, the implied question here, does Mercer have the disease? We know how you get the disease. You have sex with someone who already has it. Gross. So that's a thing. Does the disease affect the maelstrom? Yes, it does. Why does the disease protect you from the maelstrom? Oh my god, I have a good one. God, that's gonna be intense. Just to watch his like weird disintegrate, right? Like, what happens? What happens when the disease comes to its full, like, fruition? Will Gritch lose his powers or their powers? I think they will. Right? So we know that. Why did the Maelstrom have Tao attempt suicide? We know that because the Maelstrom wants Nothing's family to die and go away. So I want to know. Oh my god, no, I know why. So I was gonna say, why does Nothing want Mercer's hold destroyed? You know why? Because his fucking daughter is dead, and she's been replaced by an alien Maelstrom clone. So obviously he's like, Jericho, we have to go and wreck their hold. So what's gonna happen here is, will Nothing get what he wants? Will Maelstrom Mercer be killed? Right? Nothing just wants... He wants Jericho to kill the alien thing that has replaced his little girl. Whew. Yeah. Man. Creepy. Yeah, so we've learned the transition, the vector of the disease was previously, because Nothing's not a psychic. Nothing's not a brainer. He doesn't have psychic powers, but brain scanning is the same intimacy as sex, and we know that the vector for Tao's disease is both sexual and psychic. So if you brain scan someone, or you connect with someone in this way, there's a chance you can get the disease. So there's a bunch of people who maybe have the disease, like Exit has had sex with Tao, Nothing has it, Mercer had or didn't have it, we don't know, got replaced because thanks a lot Gritch, you killed her. Anyone who has sex with Gritch will get it. People who Gritch brain scans might have it. Frankie might have it. I'm actually gonna put that here. But here's the thing, the brain scan is one directional, right? It's like, I'm brain scanning you. So whether you get it, we don't know whether you get it from being brain scanned. How exactly do you get infected? And I don't know, and I'm okay leaving it at that, because the characters don't know, and no one in the world knows either. I mean, there's no one who's going to be able to look at this like a disease. People are going to think it's like possession or like something or whatever. Everyone's confused. It's protection against, I think the disease is protection against what the maelstrom is doing or trying to do, but not necessarily protection against forgetting. There's a lot of complicated shit going on here. And ultimately, for me, and this is the freedom of playing a game in which the questions are more important than the answers, not being universally... I'm not engaged in a process of being universally consistent with this stuff. So there's a lot of that stuff there that we're not sure about. We've asked more questions than we've answered. And what I think is interesting is, like, look at the amount of stuff that we had in the episode, right? Look at the character focus that we had. Look at the build up of the hold and learning about those things. But I mean, look at what we focused on today, right? I revealed something that I've kind of been thinking about for a while. And it triggered all these other questions. And the political stratum of the game, right? Mercer versus Jericho versus nothing versus the Fishers. That thing is like a thin web of fat on top of the like deep, bloody meat of the game underneath, right? Of like the world being reconstructed. And the real question is, does what you do matter? Can you make a change to this like raw mess underneath all the human chaos, right? And that's what this game is about. So, yep, that's what GMing Apocalypse World can be like, right? Now you can play games that are like Mad Max, right, or like The Road Warrior, and a little like simpler. But you can also do games that are like this. And you'll remember, if you want to read something or some things that are heavily inspiring me, I would say the three things that I am drawing on most for this are elements of the book In the Dust of This Planet. There are elements of that book that have really inspired me for this game. The book Roadside Picnic, aka Stalker. Big inspiration for this campaign. And then also a more recent series, the Southern Reach trilogy is a series of books that's really inspiring me in a lot of ways to run this game. So if you're looking for supplemental material, shit that inspired the MC, I would go check out those three things if you haven't already. And I think that should do it. I feel ready for the next session. So, if you're playing Apocalypse World and, you're looking at MCing this kind of stuff, in my experience, this is about all it takes to really prep for a session. An hour of like focused looking at your fronts and being like, okay, let's arrange this stuff. I do it as close to the game as I can. And then I spend the rest of the week sitting and thinking like, okay, what kind of stuff is triggering weird ideas in my head? What's giving me thoughts about Apocalypse World that I can incorporate? So picking little things as I move through the week between now and Thursday will help me be a better MC for the game. So if you like what you saw today, obviously tune in every Thursday, 11 a.m. Right here, twitch.tv/Roll20app, or on our YouTube channel at MSRoll20. You can follow us on Twitter at Roll20app. You can follow me on Twitter at SkinnyGhost if you want additional bonus stuff. I also stream at twitch.tv/AdamKoble, but I will always host this content over there. So give us a follow wherever feels appropriate for you, and we will see you on Thursday. Now remember, we're not going to do a full normal session on Thursday. We're going to be talking about some other stuff. I'll announce all those details on Twitter as the week goes on, as we finalize that. And at the very end of that, we will be announcing our new game. We're also looking at doing some giveaways. So giveaways of games that we're playing, giveaways of Roll20 subscriptions. So keep an eye out. Follow us on social media for those things. For more details, we'll be doing some raffles and all that stuff. And thank you, as always, for tuning in. It's been a pleasure. We will see you on the flip side. Have a good one, everybody.